What's up, internet? So a little over 2 months ago, at the end of October, I performed in MTO's New York. It was my last show directing with them, and like I did for Movie Musicals and Gender Bent, I am going to share some of my commentary on the show with you. If you want to watch the full video of the show, if you would like to see what I'm talking about, I will link the video down below. It is up on the MTO YouTube channel. Go subscribe to them. But anyway, let's get into this. My New Year's resolution is to make these intros shorter and not to be so long-winded. Anyway, let's go! So this little moment from the end of Coffee Break stemmed from a rehearsal. I believe it was one of our really long, all-day 6-hour rehearsals. But there was one day where in rehearsal, Angie was really tired, and at the end of this number, as you can see, we all fell to the ground, and then when Neo comes across with his coffee and is like, "It's coffee," we all get up and we start chasing after him. But during rehearsal one day, Angie was just really tired, so she just stayed laying on the floor, just on the floor of the rehearsal room, I'm not getting up. And Christina then went and just started dragging her towards stage left where we had all exited to. And initially we were like, that's hysterical, and we were gonna keep it in the show. It wound up that it was gonna be kind of impractical, and it would also absolutely get dirt over whatever clothes she was wearing in the show being dragged off the stage. But it did stay in the show in a way, in that she was gonna be the last person off who was just kind of booking it, and she had her cute little shriek. I loved it, thought it was hilarious, A+ Angie. I absolutely love Paulina's voice. It is so deep and rich and dark, and it has this great jazzy quality. I just love it. And for this show, she actually didn't do a live audition. I think she had class or work when we were doing the audition, so she auditioned with a video. And normally when we're sitting watching auditions, if we have a break between audition appointments, audition time slots, we'll all kind of take a break, gather around one of our laptops, and start watching the video submissions. And so I forget what day of auditions it was, but we just had a little bit of a gap, and so we sat down and we start opening up the videos, and I am not kidding, the second that we opened Paulina's video and the second we heard it, literally, it was me, Mitchie, Georgia, and Zach, all huddled around my laptop sitting at the table, and the second she started singing this song, we literally all went, holy shit, that's in the show! I know that a lot of people say that Don't Rain on My Parade is overdone, and I don't necessarily disagree with that, but honestly, it fits her voice so well, and she did it so well, that we were yeah, that's in the show, it was a split-second decision. We literally all, recoiled as we were watching the videos. We were just damn! When Angie was on stage performing Model Behavior, she was not using a phone prop. That was her actual cell phone. And not only was she using her actual phone, she actually had it on and open to the lyrics of the song. And apparently what she was doing, which I did not find out until after the show, as she was walking between the mics and she was pretending to be furiously texting, she was actually looking down at the lyrics to just do a quick refresher of what was coming next, because it is a very long song with just a million words. And honestly, I'm not at all mad that she did that, because 1, I didn't notice it. 2, she acted that and brought that character to life so well. And honestly, that was pretty clever, and I'm kinda mad I didn't think of it myself. But then we get to this moment. So as this was happening, and for this entire song, I was actually watching from the wings. I'll get into the reason behind that in a second. But I saw Angie run from the microphone to David, to our pianist. And as I was watching this from the wings, I had a slight suspicion that something had gone wrong, but honestly, I wasn't 100% sure. Because for one thing, she did not break character for a second. And 2, bless David, he is a fabulous pianist, a fabulous accompanist. He was just vamping and going along with it. And also, I wasn't 100% sure if I had ever seen her perform this all the way through. Because for one thing, in MTO shows, for the individual numbers, which is what we call solos, duets, and trios, we are pretty much hands off. We do not schedule rehearsals for them. They are the responsibility of the people performing them. The production team, we always make ourselves available to workshop the individual numbers with those people if they should want that, if they should want a second opinion or some help, but that's not mandatory. And we also ensure that they actually, go and rehearse with their assigned pianist before the show, before dress rehearsal. But again, we are not there for that. So with a lot of the individual numbers, we really don't know what they did with it until we get to dress rehearsal and we get to see it. But then as the director, I sometimes don't even get to see all of that all the way through, because in dress rehearsal, I'm running here, I'm running there, this person needs me, I gotta make sure nothing's exploding. So all of that is to say, I wasn't totally sure that I had ever seen this number all the way through. So at that moment in my brain, there was like a pretty high chance that this was just something that I never saw in rehearsal. But then later on, Angie told me that she had been using it to look at the lyrics, and then at one point she had put the phone up to her face, up to her ear, to like be like she's talking into it. And what happened was that, and she has an iPhone, so it's a touchscreen, so when she went to move to the next mic, to move to the next verse or whatever it was, things got like all out of place, so it got out of place. She was like doing this, like acting like she's texting, but really like looking at the lyrics, and it was all in a different place. And so she had run over to David, again, not breaking character for a second, just to kind of reorient herself.
Peppa, sweetheart, listen, I need to tell you.
Take his phone. End of messages.
And like I said earlier, I was standing watching from the wings during this number, and Neo as well was next to me, standing watching from the wing, because we were actually the voices of the answering machine. That was not a sound effect, that was me and Neo huddled over one microphone. And we were actually reading our lines off of my phone during this, because I just didn't print a copy of the score that had our lines on them. So it was literally me and Neo huddled together in the stage right wing over one wireless microphone, reading our lines off of my phone screen, which is this big.
Peppa! Peppa! Call me back!
Blackout was actually supposed to be in the first ever MTO show back in 2014. It wound up getting scrapped because there was just no way in the world we were ever gonna have enough rehearsal time to get that whole thing together, because there's a million solos. It is so musically complicated, and it is just really hard to put together. And admittedly, right after we started rehearsing it in this show, I got nervous that we weren't gonna have enough time to put it together, or that it wasn't gonna come together. And what wound up happening with that is that obviously Blackout stayed in the show. Myself and the rest of the production team wound up deciding to cut a different group number from the show. We wound up deciding to cut Skid Row from Little Shop of Horrors. And looking back now, I am so glad that this stayed in the show. It came together beautifully, and I can confidently say that this is my favorite group number we have ever done in any MTO show I've ever been in. Also, and I forgot to mention this earlier, because Blackout was cut from the first ever MTO show, Mike was so excited when he heard that we were doing it in this show that we actually FaceTimed him into rehearsal one day so he could watch it.
We are powerless, we are powerless.
The club baseball bat, whatever you want to call it, prop that Rachel has right here, what that actually is the leg off of a broken piano bench that Rachel found like maybe an hour before call. I specifically remember her coming back with this thing in her hand, and basically what she said was like, Amy, I found this, it was off a broken piano bench, like I'm gonna use it in Blackout, you cool with that? And I was like, sure, fuck it, why not? It looks great. The cast had their phones on stage for this number, and initially I wanted them to have their phones to use as props, to act like they were like trying to figure out what's going on, calling their family, stuff like that. But I wanted them to have their phones either on airplane mode or completely off, and specifically not to use the flashlight. The reason that I was initially against them using the flashlights on their phones during a number called Blackout, when using a flashlight would make sense, was that I just didn't want them fumbling with their phones on stage. But then Elise, who is one of our choreographers, she suggested that they just have their flashlights on the whole time. And then when we got to that big ensemble moment where they're all singing Look at the Fireworks, we'd be raising them up like this. And I am so glad that I said yes to this. I am so glad that this made it into the show, because it looked so cool, it looked so gorgeous, and even just everybody on stage having their flashlights on at all times really did add something to the chaos, add something to the scene. The lottery ticket prop that I had right here was actually a Five Guys receipt. I thought maybe I might go and actually buy a lottery ticket or buy one of those scratch-offs. I didn't wind up doing it, so I just went into my wallet, I grabbed a receipt, I kind of like taped it, like folded it over and taped it so it wouldn't like rip apart, and then I just stuck it in my pocket, and that was my prop. Blackout actually closed Act 1, so intermission was right after it. So as we're all going back to the dressing rooms after that, we're like high on adrenaline, we're feeling good. We're going backstage, and I just see Zach, and he has the thing in his hand. Zach played Usnavi, so I had handed the receipt off to him. But anyway, Zach sees me backstage, he has the thing in his hand, and he's just like, really, Amy? Five Guys? I needed a prop, and it worked, okay? 1 opened up Act 2, and at the very beginning of this number when we were coming on stage, the house lights were actually still on. This was due to a small miscommunication, a small mishap with calling the show, and it really was pretty minor. The lights went down shortly after. Right here, as this line is coming around to the front, Hillary clocked Angie in the face with her hat, and on the beat, no less. And I was right behind Angie at this moment, and it took so much willpower not to just burst out laughing right there, because it was so damn funny to watch this play out in front of my eyes. It was just like one smack. Also, the hats that we used in this number were plastic party hats that Georgia had modified. She put some gold sparkly ribbon around them, and they also had cardboard inside of them to make them a little bit stronger. Because the first day that we had these hats in rehearsal, we noticed that there was a problem with them, and that was that they were hella noisy. And they also flopped around a lot, so we spent a day in rehearsal during Tech Week just fortifying these hats. And I also specifically remember that on one of the first hats that we made, because Georgia was using hot glue, this was like the prototype hat, Georgia may or may not have just burned a hole in the hat with hot glue. Michelle and Jillian sang Marry the Man Today in the show. They did a great job with it, but both of them had pretty unique audition stories. So Michelle has been in a bunch of our shows before, but this semester, because she was student teaching, she had to audition via a video because she wasn't around school very much. And all I really have to say about that video is that that video was damn hilarious, and I really don't expect anything less from a meme queen like Michelle.
Because I'm student teaching this semester, let me fucking die.
So this was Jillian's first show with us. She's a freshman, and she kind of arrived at MTO and arrived in front of us at auditions in a weird way. So we've had it happen in the past where people will find out about us through their friends or word of mouth, or they'll see our shows and they'll be like, that's something I would like to do. I'm pretty sure that's how Michelle started doing our shows. But Jillian was actually in a couple of community theater shows with my mom. And so when my mom found out that Jillian was going to be going to my school, she was like, you should absolutely do MTO. And so I think I might have talked to her on Facebook a little bit over the summer. I don't really remember. But yeah, she arrived in front of me at auditions because of my mom.
Slowly introduce him to the better things. Respectable, conservative, and clean.
Make someone happy. Make
First of all, about halfway through this number, there was a, shall we say, domino effect of camera failures. We shot this show on 4 cameras, so none of the footage was entirely lost, but that is why you are only seeing it from one angle. Anyway, Hillary also is another one who had an interesting audition story. So Dave, who you see here singing the duet with her, was in a class with her. It's a musical theater workshop class, and he really wanted to sing this duet with somebody, but he didn't have a partner. And if I'm correct, I wasn't actually there when this happened, but if I'm correct, what happened was Dave was basically like, hey, I'm going to audition for this thing, and I need a duet partner, and you're a good singer, can you come down and basically sight read this with me? And they came in, they sang beautifully, and we put it in the show. But yeah, that's the kind of strange spur-of-the-moment way that Hillary came to being in the show.
love is the answer. Someone to love is the answer.
I to deny it and try to protest, but
When Allie auditioned for us, she brought in 2 songs. She brought in If My Friends Could See Me Now, which she presented to us with choreography, and Love Never Dies, which she wound up singing in the show. And shortly after the cast list was out, she sent me a text, and she basically told me that her mom had wanted her to sing Love Never Dies forever, really wanted her to sing it, but she wanted to make it a surprise. So what we wound up doing was making a decoy program that looked exactly like the normal program in all ways except one. Instead of saying that Allie was singing Love Never Dies, we had had it say that she was singing If My Friends Could See Me Now, and those were the programs that were gonna go to her parents. We then looped the entire cast in on the plot, so none of them let it out. We also told the people who were gonna be working front of house, these are the decoys, give them to her parents. Her parents got the decoys, they did not know she was singing Love Never Dies, and were surprised when she came out and started singing Love Never Dies. I think I actually saw Allie with her mom after the show, and then I was just like, yep, we made a decoy program, like, we were all in on it. Erica was playing Mimi in Light My Candle, and she had a little drug prop, little cocaine, little heroin. I don't know drugs, but apparently Tim, who was playing Roger here, he just like brought sugar and was just like, here, like make a prop out of that. And so before the show, Erica was like, well, I have to shrink this, because she had like this like storage size Ziploc with like a ton of sugar in it. And I'm just looking at it, I'm like, yeah, you do, because that's like a felony amount of fake cocaine right there.
Stop spinning anyway.
Nothing. Your smile reminded me of.
Always remind people of How do you measure a year in life without
When we were first planning out this show, choosing group numbers, kind of working out like the blueprint of the show, I knew for a fact that I wanted my last number as director of MTO, my farewell, so to speak, to be Seasons of Love. However, I actually initially really didn't want to sing that solo at the end. I actually had somebody else in mind for it. And so Seasons of Love was the first song we started working on in rehearsals. And like I said, I had another person in mind for that solo, which I told to Mitchie and Georgia, who were my assistants at the time. And I specifically remember saying to them in rehearsal one day, I said, you know, I have somebody in mind for this. And they said, yeah, we do too. And they didn't say it in like a mischievous kind of way. And so I'm initially thinking like, maybe we're thinking of the same person. But then Georgia slides her score over to me where she's written Amy over the last solo. And Mitchie's there like, like I agree. And so I was just like, all right, I'm outnumbered. I guess I'm singing this now. And looking back now, I'm actually really glad that I did sing that solo. It was a good send off. And also because when I was younger, around like maybe 10 or 11 years old, my mom would always play the Rent soundtrack in the car. And I would always try to hit that high note, that high C. And while now at 22 I can hit a high C, I really could not do that when I was 10. Didn't stop me from trying though. But yeah, that was a really good way to kind of end my run as director of MTO. End of Seasons of Love, we did a little bit of a curtain call, which I made a point of rehearsing during Tech Week. We did it multiple times. So right at the end of the song, I step back, I go to like link hands with the people next to me so we could do our little bow thing that I had specifically rehearsed. And I noticed that basically everybody to the left of me is just gone. Like they're all booking it off stage and I'm just standing here, and in my head, I'm like, I rehearsed these bows, what the fuck are you doing? So I wind up going off stage left to be like, get back on, we're bowing now. And then they kind of like shoo me out. I see that stage right has left the stage. I can't even begin to express how much my brain was exploding. Somehow we all get back on stage, we do our group bow, we acknowledge the band, we acknowledge the crew, and right as we're about to do our little final group bow, as I had rehearsed, I see Georgia with a mic in her hand and flowers under her arm. And I'm just standing there like, God damn it, Georgia is about to make me cry right now. And I don't really have any better words for describing what happened next, so I'm just gonna let you watch it.
How you doing tonight? Okay, thank you all so much for coming. I'd like to give a special shout out to our wonderful director, Amy Guarino. So, this is Amy's last show that she is directing with us. And myself and Mitzi are going to be taking over next semester. We have some big shoes to fill, let me tell you. She is the most organized, the most wonderful, the biggest stage mom in the whole entire universe. And we are so lucky to have her with us. Also, I'd like to give a big special thanks to our musical director, Zach Mandernack.
Then as we're walking off stage, or we were in the wings or something, Mitchie walks up and she has this little thing in her hand, and she is entirely too happy to be giving this to me. And she's like, here, this fell out of your flowers. Y'all, I swear to God, it was a popsicle stick with my headshot on it. And on my headshot, they put hashtag, we put Amy in the plant 2K17. Then when I got back to the dressing room, they gave me a card that they had all signed, which I still have. I love it so much. And so I just kind of asked them, like, how on earth did you guys have like 2 bouquets for me and Zach? And they also got like those little like single flower things, like the little single flower in the plastic for the band. And they also had this card. And so I'm like, how did you guys have all of this? How did you sign this card when I was like running around backstage and like doing laps around backstage the whole time before the show? And so apparently they hid the flowers somewhere, but when they were all signing the card, Michelle was parked outside of the girls' dressing room, and if she saw me coming, she would shout, "Yeet!" Which, if you guys don't know, Michelle says yeet about every 5 seconds, which is probably why I didn't notice, because I probably walked by and was just like, Michelle's saying yeet for some reason. Nothing out of the ordinary here. And that is about the end of this video. Go watch the video of the show. It is linked down below. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Leave a comment. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video.